Listen, the Dodgers just won back-to-back championships, and now they're about to make a move that could literally break baseball. I'm not exaggerating when I say this could reshape the entire league for the next decade. The reports coming out right now are absolutely insane, and if you're a fan of any other team, you should probably be worried. Very worried. So here's what we know. Munetaka Murakami has officially been posted by the Tokyo Yakult Swallows, which means all 30 major league teams can now negotiate with him. But let's cut through the noise here, because we all know where this is heading. The Dodgers are the overwhelming favorites to land this guy, and honestly, it's not even close. When you have Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Roki Sasaki already on your roster, why wouldn't another Japanese superstar want to join that clubhouse? It's becoming the destination for elite talent from Japan, and Murakami would fit perfectly into that culture. Now, if you don't know who Murakami is, let me paint you a picture. This guy hit 56 home runs in a single season in Nippon professional baseball. 56. That broke a record that had stood since 1964, a record held by the legendary Sadaharu Oh, who is basically the Babe Ruth of Japanese baseball. Murakami was 22 years old when he did that. 22. That's not just impressive, that's historically significant. We're talking about legitimate, game-changing power that translates to any league in the world. The thing about Murakami is that his raw power is off the charts. Scouts compare his bat speed and exit velocity to guys like Kyle Schwarber and Pete Alonso. When he makes contact, the ball absolutely explodes off his bat. We're talking upper deck shots, no doubt home runs, the kind of power that changes games in a single swing. In his last season in Japan, despite dealing with injuries and playing in only 69 games, he still managed to hit 24 home runs. Think about that production level when he was clearly not even at full health. Now imagine what he could do over a full 162 game season in the majors when he's completely healthy and locked in. But here's where it gets really interesting for the Dodgers specifically. Max Muncy just had his $10 million club option picked up for next season, and a lot of people are asking how Murakami fits when Muncy is still on the roster. Well, there are a couple of ways this could play out. First, the Dodgers could absolutely trade Muncy. His contract is incredibly team-friendly, and there are multiple teams that would love to have a veteran third baseman with his experience and leadership. The Seattle Mariners immediately come to mind as a team that needs that kind of player and would probably jump at the opportunity to acquire him. The other scenario, which might actually make more sense, is that the Dodgers bring Murakami over as a developmental player for this coming season. Let Muncy start at third base while Murakami adjusts to major league pitching, gets comfortable with the environment, and works on the defensive side of his game. Then, when Muncy's contract expires after the season, Murakami takes over full-time in 2027. It's a smart, patient approach that gives the organization flexibility while also ensuring they don't rush a young talent into a situation he's not ready for. Let's talk about the money for a second, because this is where things could get absolutely wild. Murakami is 25 years old, which is crucial. Under the international signing rules, if he were under 25, he'd be restricted to the international bonus pool system, which would limit his contract to somewhere between $4 and $9 million, similar to what happened with Roki Sasaki. But because he's 25, this becomes an unrestricted bidding war. We're talking about a contract that could easily land somewhere between $100 and $200 million. Now, the Tokyo Yakult Swallows are going to make out pretty well in this deal too. Under the posting system, they'll receive 20% of the first $25 million of whatever contract Murakami signs, 17.5% of the next $25 million, and 15% of anything above $50 million. So if he signs a deal worth, let's say, $150 million, his Japanese team is walking away with a massive chunk of change. It's a win-win situation for everyone involved, except maybe for the rest of Major League Baseball that has to figure out how to compete with the Dodgers after they add yet another elite bat to their lineup. The Dodgers lineup would become absolutely terrifying with Murakami in it. Imagine this for a second. You've got Mookie Betts leading off, then Shohei Ohtani hitting second, Freddie Freeman in the 3 spot, and then Murakami hitting cleanup or in the 5 hole. That's 4 guys who can all hit 30 plus home runs in a season. 4 legitimate MVP caliber players in the same lineup. How do you pitch around that? You can't. There's no escape. You have to challenge somebody, and whoever you challenge is going to make you pay. But there are legitimate questions about Murakami's game that need to be addressed. The biggest concern is his swing and miss rate. He strikes out a lot. We're talking about a guy who could easily strike out in 30 to 35% of his plate appearances at the major league level. That's a significant issue, especially in today's game where pitchers are throwing harder than ever and have an arsenal of nasty breaking balls and splitters. The competition level in NPB is good, but it's not quite major league level, particularly when it comes to velocity and pitch movement, so there's definitely some risk involved in projecting how his bat will translate. The other concern is defense. Murakami has primarily played third base in Japan, but his defensive metrics suggest he's below average at the position. He doesn't have elite range, his arm is decent but not exceptional, and he's made his share of errors. Some scouts think he might ultimately be better suited for first base, where his defensive limitations would be less exposed. But even at first base, he's probably more of a Josh Naylor type defender, adequate, but not someone you're counting on to make spectacular plays. Still, when you're talking about a guy who could hit 40 home runs in a season, you're willing to live with some defensive shortcomings. The Dodgers have shown time and time again that they can work with players to improve their defense. Look at what they did with Mookie Betts, moving him from right field to shortstop and having him perform at a level that shocked everyone. If anyone can maximize Murakami's defensive potential, it's the Dodgers' development and coaching staff. Now let's talk about the competition for his services, because it's not just the Dodgers in this race. The New York Yankees desperately need a third baseman after missing out on other options, and they have the financial firepower to compete with anyone. Brian Cashman has to be salivating at the idea of adding a power bat like Murakami to a lineup that struggled with consistency last season. The Seattle Mariners are another team that makes a ton of sense. They need offense badly, they have strong connections to Japanese players, and they could sell Murakami on being the face of their franchise as they try to compete in a tough American League West Division. The Boston Red Sox are also lurking as a potential destination. They've been relatively quiet in recent off seasons, but they have money to spend and a clear need for impact bats. Adding Murakami would signal that they're serious about getting back into contention after a couple of disappointing seasons. Then there are wildcard teams like the San Francisco Giants, who always seem to be in the mix for big-name players and have the financial resources to make competitive offers. But here's the reality. When you're a 25-year-old superstar choosing where to play, you're not just looking at money, you're looking at the opportunity to win championships, the quality of the organization, the lifestyle, and the support system around you. The Dodgers check every single one of those boxes. They just won back-to-back World Series titles. They have 3 of your countrymen already on the roster, including the biggest star in baseball in Shohei Ohtani. They're located in Los Angeles, which has a massive Japanese community, and all the amenities a young player could want, and they've proven time and time again that they know how to develop and support international players. Former general manager Jim Bowden broke this down perfectly when he said that everything points to the Dodgers being the perfect spot for Murakami. Why would he want to go anywhere else when he could play alongside Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Sasaki, guys he's competed with and against in international competitions? The comfort level alone would be invaluable for a young player making the transition to Major League Baseball. And let's be honest, the Dodgers have been incredibly strategic about building relationships in Japan and positioning themselves as the premier destination for Japanese talent. The other factor that can't be ignored is the Dodgers' willingness to get creative with contract structures. They've shown with previous signings that they're comfortable with deferred money, backloaded deals, and unique structures that give them flexibility under the luxury tax while still paying players their market value. If Murakami is willing to accept a deal that's structured favorably for the team, which is entirely possible given how badly Japanese players seem to want to play for the Dodgers, then this becomes even more of a slam dunk. Think about what this means for the rest of the league, and teams are already complaining about competitive balance. Small market teams feel like they can't compete financially, and now the Dodgers, who just won 2 straight championships, are about to add another potential 40 home run hitter to their lineup. The outrage is going to be off the charts. You're going to hear GMs complaining about the system, owners demanding changes to the CBA, and fans of other teams absolutely losing their minds. But you know what? The Dodgers don't care. They're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. The comparison to Harmon Killebrew that Bowden made is fascinating because Killebrew was a Hall of Fame slugger who hit 573 home runs in his career. Obviously, that's the ceiling projection, not the expectation, but it shows you the kind of raw power scouts see in Murakami's swing. Even if he only reaches a fraction of that ceiling, you're still talking about an impact middle-of-the-order bat who changes the entire dynamic of your lineup. What makes this even more intriguing is the timing. The Dodgers are in win-now mode, but they're also building for sustained success. Adding a 25-year-old with this kind of upside gives them a cornerstone piece for the next decade. When you consider that Freddie Freeman is in his mid-30s and won't be around forever, having Murakami locked up long-term provides insurance and continuity. This isn't just about winning in 2026, it's about maintaining dominance through 2030 and beyond. The strikeout concerns are real, but they're also somewhat overblown in today's game. Look at guys like Schwarber or Aaron Judge or even Giancarlo Stanton. They all strike out at high rates, but when they connect, the results are devastating. Modern baseball has evolved to accept higher strikeout rates in exchange for elite power production. Teams are willing to live with the strikeouts because the home runs more than make up for it. As long as Murakami maintains a decent on-base percentage through walks and occasional hits, the power production will justify his presence in the lineup. Another interesting element is how Murakami's presence could impact the rest of the Dodgers lineup. When you have multiple legitimate power threats, it becomes exponentially harder for opposing pitchers to navigate through the order. You can't pitch around everyone. If you walk Ohtani to get to Murakami, you're still facing a guy who can launch one into the pavilion. If you challenge Freeman and he gets on base, now you're dealing with Murakami with runners in scoring position. The strategic complexity for opposing managers and pitching coaches becomes almost impossible to solve. There's also the psychological factor. When you're a pitcher facing a lineup this stacked, it messes with your head. You can't relax for a single batter. Every pitch matters because any mistake could end up 450 feet away. That mental pressure compounds over the course of a long season, and especially in playoff series when the margin for error is razor thin. The Dodgers would essentially be creating an offensive juggernaut that wears down opposing pitching staffs just through sheer sustained pressure. Let's talk about the development aspect for a moment, because this is where the Dodgers really separate themselves from other organizations. They have the resources and infrastructure to help Murakami make the necessary adjustments to succeed in the majors. If he needs to refine his approach against high-velocity fastballs, they have the technology and coaching staff to help him do that. If he needs to improve his pitch recognition to cut down on strikeouts, they have the data and expertise to guide that process. The Dodgers don't just acquire talent, they optimize it. The injury history is something to monitor, but it's not a deal breaker. Murakami dealt with elbow surgery and an oblique strain last season, which limited him to 69 games. But he's young, and most players his age recover fully from those types of injuries. The Dodgers medical staff is among the best in baseball, and they'd put together a comprehensive plan to keep him healthy and productive over the long term. Given that he still managed to hit 24 home runs in limited action while dealing with those issues, there's actually reason for optimism about what he can do when fully healthy. If you're ranking him among this year's free agent class, he probably falls somewhere in that 10 to 15 range when you account for the uncertainty around his transition to major league pitching. Guys like Kyle Tucker, Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman, and Anthony Santander have proven track records at the MLB level, so they justifiably rank higher. But Murakami's age and upside make him incredibly appealing, especially for a team like the Dodgers that can afford to be patient with his development while still competing for championships. The reaction from other teams is going to be absolutely priceless. You know, GMs are already calling each other complaining about how unfair this is. You know, small market owners are furious that they can't compete for players like this. But that's the reality of modern baseball. The Dodgers have built a machine that attracts top talent, develops that talent, and puts them in position to win championships. Other teams should stop complaining and start figuring out how to replicate that model instead of asking for rule changes to handicap success. This signing would also send a message to the rest of the league that the Dodgers aren't satisfied with back-to-back titles. They want a dynasty. They want to be mentioned in the same breath as the Yankees teams of the late 90s or the Giants teams of the 2010s. Adding Murakami would be a statement that they're going all in on sustained excellence, regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. So here's where we are. Murakami is posted, the negotiating window is open, and the Dodgers are the clear frontrunners. The financial terms will probably shake out somewhere between 100 and 150 million over 6 or 7 years. The fit makes sense from every angle: talent, culture, opportunity, and timing, unless another team makes an absolutely insane offer that the Dodgers can't match. This feels like a done deal, and when it happens, when Murakami puts on that Dodgers uniform and steps into the batter's box at Chavez Ravine for the first time, baseball fans everywhere are going to realize that this team isn't just good. They're historic. They're building something special, something that people will talk about for generations, and Murakami will be a huge part of that story.